Super Mario RPG is often cited as one of the best titles for the Super Nintendo. Coming out in 1996, right at the end of the Super Nintendo's lifespan, the Nintendo and Square collaboration spawned several successful series for the future, and you can definitely see how this game established many of the elements that we'll see in the Paper Mario series as well as in the Mario and Luigi series. However, while this is certainly a strong game, and it was excellent for the time, there are a couple of issues that stand out today. Nevertheless, it's still a fantastic title and a must-play for any action RPG fans. The game begins when Mario enters Bowser's castle to rescue Princess Toadstool. During the battle, a giant sword falls named Smithy, and he falls from the sky, breaks through the Star Road, and crashes into Bowser's castle, sending Mario, Princess Toadstool, and Bowser flying in different directions, as well as scattering 7 star fragments across the world. Yeah, you can see exactly where this is going. Mario returns to Bowser's castle, but the giant sword destroys the bridge, preventing him from entering. Upon returning, Mario encounters Mallow, a tadpole as he says, and eventually Geno, a puppet inhabited by the spirit of some higher authority. Mario agrees to team up with these two to recover the 7 stars and defeat Smithy in order to save the world. The story in this game is very basic, of course. Basically, it's just an adventure where you go to a new town, help solve a problem, and recover a star piece. The game does not really focus on the characters much, but more on the adventures and the zany enemies you encounter. That's fine though, because I really wasn't expecting a deep plot out of a Mario game. Mallow does have some character development, and Geno is really cool, but that's really about it for the story. However, the villains you encounter are very interesting, and they're all wacky in their own ways. But again, there's just enough story to make things fun, especially with some genuinely good humor and writing, but it definitely doesn't steal the show. Like the other Mario RPGs that this one inspired, there's a lot of fun stuff, and it never takes itself too seriously at all, making the game very refreshing, especially at the time, I would imagine. The gameplay reflects the developer's goal of making an RPG for all ages, as well as something that would bring in non-RPG gamers. Kind of like Mystic Quest, but we don't talk about Mystic Quest unless we're talking about the soundtrack. However, as an adult gamer, this kind of gameplay frustrated me a bit because although I knew that the goal was to make an easy to understand RPG that was accessible to everybody, I was kind of hoping for something a little more complicated and interesting, but it's still a game that does appeal to all ages. Basically, it has your standard RPG elements, but there are a few noticeable changes. First of all, your whole team shares magic, or flower points, instead of having their own kind of set of points. This was just a little strange, but I think the point was just to make it easier for newer gamers to keep track of everything. Next, the level up system is kinda cool. First of all, you can only go to level 30, which reflects the roughly 15-hour playtime of this game. And when you level up, you can choose to get a boost in your HP, strength, or flower points. This was really cool, but if you picked one of these power-ups too many times, you would only get a smaller boost every time, while the other categories would get a regular or even bigger boost, which encourages you to even things out. Although I understand the point of this, I don't know why this was a thing. Like, let me make my own decisions about creating a character. I know they want us to avoid having characters that aren't well-rounded, but really that's my decision to make. They also did that in the later kind of Mario RPG games, and again, it just seems kind of like false freedom to offer us this choice when, in the end, it doesn't really matter. Another interesting thing about this game was the platforming. You can see all the enemies and who you'll be fighting, though addressing your enemies from behind or the front does nothing here like it does in the later Mario RPG games. More so than other games in Mario RPG series, there are a decent amount of platforming challenges, and while Mario usually has a decent amount of airtime in his actual platforming games, here He falls like the ghost of all the Goombas he's viciously murdered are dragging him to hell after the apex of his jump. What I mean is that the platforming is kind of fun, but it can get pretty annoying in some places. Also, when you finish a battle, you generally get a bit of invincibility in the other games, so that you can get your bearings after a battle and figure out where you're going. However, here in Mario RPG, enemies are everywhere and you have no blinking time after a fight, which was really just annoying and something they easily could have added, and I don't understand why that's not there. On the other hand, one really cool thing in this game that I never really experienced before is how you can get a star in this game from blocks. And like in the regular Mario games, you can use them to kill enemies, except here you actually get the experience points for just running into them as if you had just actually fought them. That's awesome. Like, why isn't there more of this in other games? Another thing that was really well done was the puzzles. Although there were some mazes, and a lot of the puzzles were kind of annoying, some of the puzzles were pretty cool, like having you find secret codes, or doing things in a certain order, or answering trivia questions, and it was just a nice change of pace that kept things moving. There's one puzzle in the game where you had to get a key in a later town, and I won't spoil it, but it was really freaking clever. Finally, the game has a bunch of these little mini-games which were also really well done. They really varied the gameplay a lot and presented a lot of fun, unique challenges. There were a lot of these games, and there's also a lot of these cool little secrets spread across the game in general. So even though an experienced player can tackle this one in maybe under 10 hours, there's a lot of replay value in finding the secrets and all the cool little things crammed into this game. Thus, the gameplay definitely had some issues in my book, but it's still a lot of fun, action-oriented, and just a very well-crafted game. The battle system is actually really good. You have your basic time system, which is an ingenious way to keep players invested. I can't really say a whole lot more than that though. You have a very limited amount of options, and the game is really generous with items, like to the point where they'll start giving you freebies for some reason. Although, despite all this, it actually manages to be a pretty decent challenge. The bosses were really fun, and they really stood out for their creativity and some of the strategies that you had to implement. It was a really fun battle system that flourished despite its simplicity. The graphics in the game are probably closest to best on the system, due to how late this one came out. There are so many colors, the character models are all so detailed, and the locations are really memorable. Everything is zany, weird, and a lot of fun to look at. And I can't really say much more than that. It's just a damn good looking game with a lot of fun designs. The music is also really top notch. And of course it would be, because it was done by Yoko Shimomura herself, who is a phenomenal composer. She makes such great music. You can definitely kind of catch some of the Final Fantasy instruments in this game. The music is all upbeat, it carries the Mario style, and it stays in your head absolutely forever. There are even some slower, melancholic pieces that were well done and used some interesting instruments. Suffice to say, it was a very excellent soundtrack that won't leave your brain once it's found its way in. To conclude, Super Mario RPG: The Legend of the Seven Stars started a line of phenomenal games, setting many of the hallmarks right here. Witty dialogue, a memorable adventure that values quality over quantity, many secrets to discover, and more. It truly is a very good title that offers so much and clearly has a lot of love put into it. Although there were some issues here and there about refinement in later games, I absolutely love this one, and I think it succeeded as being a gateway RPG for anyone interested in the genre. I think that if you like action RPGs especially, or if you just want a different, shorter, more varied RPG, then you gotta give this one a shot. Thanks for watching.